Welcome back to Solutions for Mental Wellness. We have John Beck, an LPC here in Greenville, South Carolina, on again. And this time, John, we're going to focus on what successful recovery looks like. And first, I want to say it's not perfection. So if it's not perfection, what is it?
Successful recovery is an individualistic thing. Let me say that first of all, because
I'm so glad you said that, because we're all unique and individual and have different needs.
Exactly. One thing that I tell all of my clients is that recovery is a lifestyle, and everybody's lifestyle is different. Everybody's path in life is different. So successful recovery is not going to look the same for one person as it does the other.
It's not a one size fits all.
It's not a one size fits all. The only thing that fits all is the initial decision to change. That's what everyone has in common in recovery. The initial decision to change.
The starting point.
That starting point. But it grows and it evolves with you as you grow and evolve as a person. I have had some clients whose recovery path was faith-based, and they went to Celebrate Recovery. They did a lot of church work. Some of them even went into ministry and started, faith-based recovery programs. That's what their recovery looked like. I've had other individuals that chose the path of, starting nonprofits or doing charitable work in the community, helping to build halfway houses and starting food banks and things of that nature.
And all of those things are very essential in moving from addiction to recovery.
They are because what it does is it infuses us with purpose. It infuses us with purpose. It is a give back. The thing about it is the more that you see, the more that you give back, and the more that you see your worth through helping other people to see theirs, then it strengthens your recovery. It strengthens your resolve. It redefines you. It redefines you, and it helps you to see why you made that initial choice, even through hard times. Because one thing that I tell individuals is, even though you made a choice to live in recovery, you will have hard days. You will have problems. Just because you are sober in recovery, it does not excuse you from life. Life is still going to do what life does, and it's going to hit you hard at times. But you have made an inward decision to change and to live in recovery. So you're finding a different way to deal with the pressure, a different way to deal with the stress, a different way to deal with the conflict, rather than running to alcohol or substances.
It's like you're leaning into the pain, which comes from change, but you now have a purpose. Mm-hmm. So how meaningful is knowing and understanding your purpose in recovery?
It's very important, because you have to think about, let's go back to the life before recovery. The life before recovery, was bleak. The life before recovery was dark. The life before recovery was you felt helpless and hopeless, and that you felt worthless. And now that you have found light at the end of the tunnel, now that you've come into a different understanding of the world and of yourself, it is so important for us to begin to find who we are and find our purpose in that new lifestyle.
Functioning from your most authentic version of yourself.
Exactly. Your most authentic version of yourself. And, I've actually had individuals to tell me that they feel as though they are better individuals now than they were before they started using. So what we're looking at is not who I was in addiction. I'm better than who I was before addiction.
Yes.
Because even before addiction, I had these flaws, and I had these blinders on in certain areas
and needs.
And needs. But now that I'm in recovery, the overall experience helped me to evolve into a completely different person that I like better than before.
And I know how to get my needs met in a healthier way in recovery.
Exactly. Because that's the thing. A lot of times people end up in addiction because they ran into a problem or they ran into a circumstance that they did not know how to handle. It became overwhelming, whether it was intense emotions that they didn't understand, whether it was trauma. It was something that was beyond them and they did not know how to handle it. And so it was easier to run from it or numb it with the substance or with alcohol. But now I have another solution.
So there's options in recovery that someone is able to start see and to recognize for themselves that they have, and that option is that they can be a better version of themselves, that they no longer have to believe something's wrong with me or I'm damaged property or I don't have any worth or value. They're able to see, I have purpose. My life has meaning. I can contribute. And so there's just a whole different perspective about who they are in this lifestyle that is so different from who they were before addiction was a problem and then during addiction. A metaphor that I give my clients is like addiction, regardless of the type of addiction, is like a monster that comes in. He sneaks under the door and then he crawls up in. Before you know it, he has you by the throat. And he collects all of these things about your life that are not true. And he keeps telling you, this is what the truth is. And shame says, this is who I am because of all of these things. But recovery is recognizing who the monster is and that he's been lying to you.
Exactly. I don't know if I'm going to go over into copyright, but what I want to share, just share a brief example. I illustrate exactly what you said to my clients with an example from a Marvel movie.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
One of my favorite characters, one of my favorite anti-heroes in the Marvel universe is Venom. And there is a scene in the Venom film with Tom Hardy where Tom has gone through all of this trauma because he's been infected with venom. And after he's escaped from police and from another faction that is trying to capture him and literally capture the symbiote, there's a scene where Venom literally pulls himself out of Eddie's body and turns around and talks to him and says, as long as you do what I tell you to do, then you might just survive. And I always use that. And when I was at the hospital, I would show that movie to my clients at the hospital and tell them, if you can imagine addiction just like Venom, because you're the only one that can hear it talking to you. You're the only one that can hear it telling you to believe those self-defeating beliefs. You're the only one that can hear it telling you that you have no control over your body anymore, which was exactly what Eddie was going through in the movie. Venom took control and did what he wanted to do with Eddie's body.
And addiction
does the exact same thing. And so when you said that, that's exactly what came to mind, that particular scene in the first Venom movie when Venom introduces himself to Eddie and says, I'm in control now. You will only survive if you do what I tell you to do.
Hey, if you're in the Greenville or Travelers Rest area, I have a salon that I want to tell y'all about. Capella Salon has a place in downtown Greenville, and they also opened up a new place in Travelers Rest. So Courtney at Capella North, she does my hair. So if you're in the area, whether you're vacationing or whether you're moving to this area, check them out. They'd love to have you come in. Walk-ins are welcome, or you can call and schedule. That's Capella in downtown Greenville, and then Capella North here in Travelers Rest. Stop in and tell them Solutions for Mental Wellness sent you. And having those symbols and metaphors, movie clips, and songs. Songs are so important.
It is.
On one of your retreats, I think the very first one I went on, someone introduced me to the songwriter and musician Jelly Roll.
Okay.
And his music, I've listened to it a lot since then, is so powerful in his own addiction journey and what he talks about. And that is important. And the person who shared that with me noted the hope that they got from just listening to those songs. So when you talk about creating a lifestyle for recovery, it sounds like that there's many things, many everyday things in life that people can use to help combat the shame that someone wants to fear, that's going to put truth into their minds. Truth, what are other people saying about me? What do they think about me? How do they feel about me? What are some movies that show what it's like to be in this chokehold? What are things in my life that is going to help me see how far I've come? And those help build a life, because we're all building a life, whether we're in addiction or in a recovery or not. We're all building a life. And so asking what kind of life we want to build. And so when do you ask that question to your clients about what kind of lifestyle do you want to have? Is it when they're early in the addiction process, or is it more when they're further into the recovery process?
You know, I ask it at different points.
Okay.
I ask it as a motivator for them in early recovery. I recall asking that same question when individuals are in detox. Once they have gotten over their acute withdrawal symptoms and their mind is clearing up, I ask them that question so that they can give themselves hope. What do you want your life to look like? Which direction do you want your life to go in? And they'll tell me, well, I want to repair my relationship.
Because that implies they have power and control.
Exactly. And so once they tell me the things that they hope for, that's the key. They see hope.
Yes.
That is the key, that they see hope. And as they tell me these things, we'll break it down and we'll say, okay, what are some things that we can do to kind of facilitate this becoming a reality? And as they have these goals to begin to work towards, to facilitate this new life of recovery, when they reach these goals, then I ask them the question again. Okay, what's our next step? What more? What's the next thing that you want to do?
So you're asking the question periodically and throughout, because small change leads to bigger change.
Exactly.
And
it's a progression.
Yes, they may not be able to see, or they may want to see, one day I want my life to be where the monster no longer has me by the throat. But focusing on that is so daunting and overwhelming that helping them see, okay, what do you want your life to be for this day, for this week, for this month? And that infuses hope and empowers them to see, I do have some small choices. John, thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to ask our producer, Diana Valerie, she has some questions for us.
Sure.
When you're talking about helping the addict through recovery and finding their purpose, like where's the starting point for finding their purpose? Like, how do they know what they're good at? Like, you don't want them adopting your impression of them. Mm-hmm. So if they've never known who they are, they don't have a good sense of identity, self-identity, where do you start?
I start with a really basic question. When was the last time you were happy? When was the last time you were happy? What were you doing when you were happy? Sometimes I go back to childhood. What kind of things did you enjoy? What were your dreams before addiction took over? Can we go back there? And for some people who have struggled with addiction almost all of their lives, we go all the way back to 11, 12 years old.
Mm-hmm. And then sometimes reenacting that.
And reenacting, yeah. We go back to that, because one thing that individuals that have struggled with addiction sometimes struggle with is that at the point where their addiction began, it presses pause on them emotionally, their emotional and mental maturity in some areas. And that is why when individuals go into recovery, sometimes they struggle with adult responsibilities. Sometimes they struggle with adapting to where the world is, because the addiction, the psychological and neurological effects of the substance and of the alcohol paused their growth.
And we go back and we nurture that.
Yes.
We meet people where they are in process.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then we nurture them, and we give them the tools that they need to nurture themselves so that they can mature and grow. And we all grow as people. And
Exactly.
so that's growth is very much part of
And
that.
so how do you help them figure out what are safe places to be in and what are not, who are safe people to be around and who are not? Do you explain to them that they may need to shed some friends, or how do you get them from that point to the next point?
Okay, one of the first things that I tell them is, now that you made your decision for recovery, I'm very honest with them, and I say, anyone that cannot respect your decision for recovery does not deserve to be in your space.
Respect is huge for me.
It is.
Now, this is a part of just my personal philosophy, and it will bleed into the work that I do with my clients. It doesn't matter who someone is and what they've done. It does not. We all are people who fail at life. Mm-hmm. But when we honor the person, when we show them respect, when we show them dignity, when we show them they mean something, when we see them, when we know them, and when we actively show love towards someone, change can happen. And that's what whoever sits with me, I want them to not just know that in a thinking way, but to feel and to know that. And that's not because that's just my truth and who I am, because that is a fact that I see them, I know them, they are more than their addiction. Yes. And that I love them in spite of everything else. And so I just got us off on a tangent, but that's something that's huge for me. And respect. Someone who is in active addiction finds it hard to respect themselves. They've lost respect for themselves. And so when we start honoring and respecting them, even when they can't do it for themselves, that to me is a beautiful gift I get to give my clients, because it doesn't matter if they're up to their eyeballs in whatever, they're still a person who has extreme worth and value.
Exactly.
John, thank you so much for being on our podcast today and talking about moving from addiction into recovery, because it is a lifestyle that can be sustained. And I hope you'll join us again and tell us a little bit about your recovery retreats.
Certainly.